Tell me about yourself used to be such a daunting question for me.
Right. But once you learn this simple formula, you'll speak confidently in English, guaranteed.
Have you ever been asked a simple question like, tell me about yourself, and suddenly your mind went completely blank? You know your name, your job, your hobbies, and even your dreams. But the moment someone asks you to introduce yourself in English, it feels like every word disappears. If that has ever happened to you, don't worry, you are definitely not alone. In fact, this is one of the most common challenges English learners face all around the world. The good news is that introducing yourself doesn't have to be difficult, stressful, or confusing. With the right structure and a little practice, anyone can answer this question naturally and confidently. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Modern English Talk, the podcast where we help you speak English with confidence, sound more natural, and enjoy the learning process. I'm your host, Emma, and as always, I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Alex. Today, we're going to explore one of the most important English-speaking topics you will ever learn. Tell me about yourself, whether you're preparing for a job interview, meeting new classmates, introducing yourself at work, attending an international event, or simply making new friends, this question will almost certainly come up. Learning how to answer it well can make a fantastic first impression and help you feel much more confident when speaking English.
That's absolutely right, Emma. Many English learners believe they need to memorize a long, perfect introduction filled with advanced vocabulary and complicated grammar. But the truth is, that's not what people are looking for. They simply want to know who you are in a clear, friendly, and natural way. A great introduction isn't about using the biggest words. It's about communicating confidently and letting your personality shine through. Even native English speakers don't try to sound perfect every time they introduce themselves. They focus on being genuine, relaxed, and easy to understand. In today's episode, we're going to show you exactly how to introduce yourself in English without feeling nervous or overwhelmed. We'll share a simple step-by-step method, practical examples for different situations, common mistakes to avoid, and useful tips that will help you sound more fluent and confident. By the end of this podcast, you'll have everything you need to create your own natural self-introduction and use it in real-life conversations.
So, if you've ever felt nervous when someone asked, tell me about yourself, then this episode is exactly what you need. Stay with us until the end because each section will build your confidence and help you speak more naturally than ever before. Let's get started. Now that we've welcomed everyone, let's answer an important question. Why do people ask, tell me about yourself? At first, it sounds like a very simple question. After all, who knows you better than you know yourself? But surprisingly, this is the question that makes many English learners feel the most nervous. The reason is that people often don't know where to start, what information to include, or how much they should say. They worry about making grammar mistakes, choosing the wrong words, or forgetting what they plan to say. As a result, even confident learners sometimes become silent or give very short answers like, my name is Ali, I'm a student, that's all. While there's nothing wrong with that answer, it doesn't give the listener much information or show
here's something that many learners don't realize. When someone asks you to tell them about yourself, they're usually not testing your memory. They're trying to learn about you and see how well you communicate. Think about a job interview. The interviewer has already seen your resume, so they probably know your name, education, and experience. They ask this question because they want to understand your personality, your communication skills, and the way you organize your thoughts. They want to see whether you can speak clearly, confidently, and naturally. The same thing happens in schools, universities, business meetings, language classes, and even when you meet someone for the first time. People are interested in getting to know the real person behind the introduction.
That's such an important point, Alex. Sometimes learners believe the need to impress people by using difficult vocabulary or long, complicated sentences. But in reality, the best introductions are often the simplest ones. Imagine meeting someone at a cafe, during a conference, or while traveling. They don't expect you to sound like a dictionary. They simply want to have a friendly conversation. If you smile, speak clearly, and share a few interesting facts about yourself, you've already made a great first impression. Confidence, clarity, and honesty will always be more valuable than trying to sound perfect.
Another reason this question is so important is because first impressions matter. Research and everyday experience both show that people often form their first opinion within the first few moments of meeting someone. Your introduction is your opportunity to make that first impression positive, friendly, and memorable. A calm voice, a natural smile, and a well-organized answer can immediately make people feel comfortable talking to you. And remember, making a good impression doesn't mean pretending to be someone else. It means presenting your true self with confidence.
So instead of thinking, what if I make a mistake? Try asking yourself a different question. How can I help the other person get to know me? That small change in mindset can completely transform the way you speak. English is not about being perfect. It's about connecting with people and sharing your ideas.
Absolutely, and here's the good news for everyone listening today. You don't need hundreds of advanced words or years of experience to answer this question well. You only need a simple structure and regular practice. In the next part of this episode, we're going to show you a powerful 3-step formula that will help you answer, tell me about yourself naturally in almost any situation.
Trust us. Once you learn this method, introducing yourself in English will become much easier, more organized, and far more confident. So let's move on to the most practical part of today's lesson. Now we've reached what I believe is the most important part of today's episode. If you've ever wondered, where should I start? Or what should I say first? When someone asks you to tell them about yourself, don't worry. You don't need to memorize a long speech or use difficult vocabulary. Instead, you only need to remember one simple and effective formula that works in almost every situation. Whether you're introducing yourself in a job interview, at school, in a language class, during a business meeting, or even when meeting someone for the first time, this structure will help you sound organized, confident, and natural. The formula is very easy to remember because it has only 3 steps: present, past, and future. Think of it as telling a short story about yourself. You begin with who you are today, then briefly explain how you got here, and finally talk about where you want to go. This creates a smooth and logical introduction that is easy for anyone to follow.
That's exactly right, Emma. Let's break it down one step at a time so everyone listening can understand how simple it really is. The first step is the present. This is where you introduce yourself and explain who you are right now. You can mention your name, where you're from, what you do, or what you're currently studying or working on. For example, you could say, my name is Sarah and I'm a university student studying computer science. Or I'm David and I work as a graphic designer. This gives the listener a clear picture of your current life and immediately answers the basic question of who you are.
The second step is the past. Here you briefly talk about your background or experiences that helped shape who you are today. This doesn't have to be a long history of your life. Just mention 1 or 2 important details, such as your education, previous work experience, a skill you've developed, or an achievement you're proud of. For example, you might say, I've always enjoyed learning languages, so I started studying English 3 years ago. Or, after finishing high school, I decided to study business because I've always been interested in entrepreneurship. These details help people understand your journey and make your introduction more interesting.
Finally, we come to the third step, the future. This is where you talk about your goals, dreams, or what you're hoping to achieve next. People love hearing about your ambitions because it shows that you're motivated and looking ahead. You could say something like, my goal is to become a software engineer and work for an international company. Or, I'm currently improving my English because I want to study abroad and communicate confidently with people from different countries. Ending your introduction with your future plans leaves the listener with a positive and memorable impression.
When you combine these 3 simple steps, your answer becomes clear, professional, and easy to understand. Instead of giving random pieces of information, you're telling a complete story about yourself. The listener doesn't have to guess what you do or what your goals are because you've guided them through your introduction in a natural order. Let's look at the structure one more time. Present, who are you today? Past, what experiences or background brought you here? Future, what are your goals and dreams? If you can remember these three words, present, past, and future, you'll never feel lost when someone asks you to introduce yourself in English.
And here's another helpful tip. Don't try to make your answer 5 or 6 minutes long. In most situations, a confident introduction that lasts between 30 seconds and 1 minute is more than enough. Keep it simple, speak naturally, smile, and let your personality come through. Remember, people aren't expecting perfection, they're expecting authenticity.
Exactly. Once you master this simple 3-step method, you'll be able to introduce yourself confidently in almost any situation. And the best way to understand this formula is to hear it in action. So, in the next section, we'll give you our first complete example, a natural student introduction that you can easily use, practice, and adapt to your own life. Now that you've learned the present, past, future formula, it's time to see how it works in a real conversation. Imagine you're a student on the first day of school, attending an English class, joining an online course, or participating in an international student exchange program. The teacher smiles and says, "Could you please tell us about yourself?" Many students immediately become nervous because they think they need to give a perfect speech. But remember, you don't need perfect English. You need a clear and natural introduction. Let me show you an example. Hello everyone, my name is Daniel and I'm 19 years old. I'm from Pakistan and I'm currently studying computer science at university. I've always been interested in technology, especially software development and artificial intelligence, because I enjoy solving problems and creating useful things with computers. During my free time, I love reading books, playing football with my friends, and practicing my English by watching podcasts, listening to conversations, and speaking whenever I get the chance. Over the past 2 years, I've been working hard to improve my communication skills because I know that English is an important language for education and future career opportunities. My goal is to become a software engineer, work with people from different countries, and continue learning new skills throughout my life. I'm really happy to be here today, and I'm looking forward to meeting all of you and learning together. Thank you.
That introduction sounds very natural, Emma, and there's a good reason for that. Notice that Daniel didn't try to impress anyone with difficult vocabulary or complicated grammar. Instead, he simply talked about who he is, what he studies, what he enjoys doing, and what he hopes to achieve in the future. Everything followed the present, past, future structure we learned earlier, which made the introduction easy to understand and enjoyable to listen to. Another thing I really like is that he included a few personal details, such as his hobbies and interests. These small details make an introduction more interesting because they give people something to talk about. For example, if another student also enjoys football or technology, they now have an easy way to start a conversation. That's how real communication works. People connect through shared interests, not through perfect grammar. That introduction sounds very natural, Emma, and there's a good reason for that. Notice that Daniel didn't try to impress anyone with difficult vocabulary or complicated grammar. Instead, he simply talked about who he is, what he studies, what he enjoys doing, and what he hopes to achieve in the future. Everything followed the present, past, future structure we learned earlier, which made the introduction easy to understand and enjoyable to listen to. Another thing I really like is that he included a few personal details, such as his hobbies and interests. These small details make an introduction more interesting because they give people something to talk about. For example, if another student also enjoys football or technology, they now have an easy way to start a conversation. That's how real communication works. People connect through shared interests, not through perfect grammar.
Exactly. And here's another important tip for everyone listening. When you introduce yourself, try to sound conversational instead of sounding memorized. If you memorize every single word, you might panic if you forget one sentence. But if you understand the structure and speak from your own experience, your introduction will sound much more confident and natural. You should also remember to speak at a comfortable speed. Many English learners think that speaking quickly makes them sound fluent, but that's not true. Speaking clearly, using natural pauses, and pronouncing your words carefully will always make a better impression than rushing through your introduction.
I completely agree. Confidence doesn't come from speaking fast. It comes from speaking clearly. Even native English speakers pause while they're talking because it gives both the speaker and the listener time to think. So don't be afraid of short pauses. They make your speech sound more natural, not less fluent. And here's one final piece of advice. Never compare your English with someone else's. Everyone starts at a different level and improvement comes through practice. Every time you introduce yourself, you'll become a little more confident than before. That's how fluency is built, one conversation at a time.
So here's today's mini challenge for you. After watching this episode, use the present, past, future method to create your own student introduction. It doesn't have to be perfect, just make it personal, simple, and honest. The more you practice, the more natural it will become. Now that we've seen how students can introduce themselves, let's move on to another common situation. In the next section, we'll learn how to answer, "Tell me about yourself" in a professional job interview, where making a strong first impression is even more important. Now let's move to one of the most important situations where you'll hear the question, "Tell me about yourself." Imagine you've finally been invited to a job interview after spending days preparing your resume and researching the company. You walk into the interview room, greet the interviewer with a smile, and after a few moments, they ask the question almost every candidate expects. "Could you please tell me about yourself?" This is your chance to make a strong first impression. Many people think they need to tell their entire life story, but that's actually a mistake. The interviewer doesn't want to hear every detail about your childhood or every job you've ever had. They want to understand who you are as a professional, what skills you have, and why you're the right person for the position. Let me give you an example of a confident and professional answer. "Thank you for giving me the opportunity to introduce myself. My name is Michael, and I'm a marketing graduate with a strong interest in digital marketing and content creation. Over the past few years, I've developed my communication, teamwork, and problem-solving skills through university projects and freelance work. I enjoy learning new things, taking on challenges, and finding creative solutions to problems. One of my biggest strengths is my ability to stay organized and work well under pressure while maintaining a positive attitude. At the moment, I'm looking for an opportunity where I can continue learning, contribute to a professional team, and grow both personally and professionally. I'm excited about this position because I believe my skills, enthusiasm, and willingness to improve would allow me to make a valuable contribution to your company. Thank you."
That answer is a perfect example of what interviewers like to hear. Notice that Michael didn't simply list facts from his resume. Instead, he told a short and meaningful story about his education, his strengths, his experience, and his future goals. Every sentence had a purpose. He sounded confident without sounding arrogant and professional without using unnecessarily difficult English. That's exactly the balance you should aim for in an interview. Another thing I noticed is that he spoke positively about himself without exaggerating. He didn't say, "I'm the best employee in the world," or "I never make mistakes." Instead, he focused on qualities that employers genuinely appreciate, such as being organized, willing to learn, working well with others, and solving problems. These are realistic strengths that make a candidate sound trustworthy and mature.
That's an excellent observation, Alex. And here's another important tip for everyone listening. Whenever you answer this question in a job interview, try to connect your introduction to the position you're applying for. If you're interviewing for a teaching job, talk about your passion for education and helping others learn. If it's a customer service role, mention your communication skills and your ability to work with people. If you're applying for a technology position, highlight your technical knowledge and your interest in solving problems. This shows the interviewer that you've thought carefully about the role and understand what the company is looking for.
Exactly. And remember, your body language is just as important as your words. Sit up straight, maintain comfortable eye contact, smile naturally, and speak at a steady pace. Even if you feel nervous inside, these small actions help you appear confident and professional. Interviewers don't expect you to be perfect. They simply want to see that you can communicate clearly and present yourself in a positive way. One more tip, avoid memorizing a script word for word. If you forget one sentence, you might panic. Instead, remember the main ideas, who you are, what you've done, what you're good at, and what you hope to achieve. That way, your answer will sound much more natural and genuine.
Absolutely. A successful interview introduction isn't about impressing people with advanced vocabulary. It's about showing your personality, your professionalism, and your enthusiasm for the opportunity. Keep your answer focused, relevant, and authentic, and you'll leave a much stronger first impression. Now we've learned how to introduce ourselves in a professional interview. But what about everyday life? What should you say when you meet someone for the first time at a cafe, a party, while traveling, or during a casual conversation? That's exactly what we'll explore in the next section. So far, we've learned how to introduce ourselves as a student and how to answer, "Tell me about yourself," in a job interview. But let's be honest, not every introduction happens in a classroom or an interview room. In real life, we meet new people almost everywhere. You might be traveling to another country, attending a friend's birthday party, joining a gym, participating in an online community, or simply sitting next to someone in a coffee shop.